Hola amigos y bienvenidos a mi clase, mi demostración para el nivel A1 del español. Hello friends and welcome to my quick demo class for the A1 level of the Spanish language. So let's just get started right away. I have this book right here, Aula Uno. And my aim over the next 10 to 12 minutes is to just get us familiar with some of the very basic sort of structures and components of the language so that you, beyond just having an idea of what it's like to sort of be a student of mine and go through this material with me, is just also just to get some exposure into the language, into the sounds, into the way it's spoken, and really walk away with, some newfound information as to what you might sound like at some point as a Spanish speaker. So I want to start out with really the most fundamental components of the language. What distinguishes Spanish immediately and very directly from English are the words, are the ways that the verbs are laid out, so our action words. All verbs in Spanish end in AR, ER, or IR. And so this is really where I want to start, is the way that Spanish distinguishes itself in the structures of verbs. So if we just think about, just take a moment to think about what the most common sort of verbs in your day may be. Maybe it's running, right? To run. Let's just consider the sounds of these words for a moment. To run, to sing, to dance, to speak, to write, to frolic, to study, to eat. Now, all of these words, there's no real correlation of one with the other. I mean, they all sound very, very sort of, they're entities unto themselves. I run, you sing, we play, we, let's say, eat, we drink, we strum the guitar, we record, So all of these words, they're sort of worlds unto themselves, and there's no real structure or ability or way that we can try to grasp at, what the next one might be. And so this is very distinct from Spanish. In Spanish, every verb, as I've said, every verb ends in AR, ER, or IR. So let me just write down three very common words to speak, which is hablar. Hablar, that's an AR verb. And then we can do an ER, comer, C-O-M-E-R, comer. And then for the third one, I'll take escribir. Okay, so here I have written down hablar, comer, and escribir. So that is to talk, to eat, and to write. Now, let's now consider very briefly for a moment what conjugation. Now, what does that really mean? It's really the modality with which we work through these charts effectively from the point of view of, I speak, you speak, he or she speaks, right? We speak, you all speak, and they speak. So if we look at this chart, if we just run through, these are the 6 main points of view via which we can sort of delineate or we can share who exactly or who it is that we want to confer is doing the speaking, who we want to share is speaking at the moment, right? I speak. Now, in English, this chart, it stays the same except for the third person, right? I speak, you speak, he speaks, right? There's that S. And that's the same across the gamut. I mean, I sing, you sing, he sings. I eat, you eat, he eats. And then it goes right back to, we eat, they eat. It all stays the same. But fundamentally, I, you, and then he, first person, second person, third person, there's just that S at the end. In Spanish, again, this is very, very distinctive. So let's just quickly cover what the words are for I. I is yo. Now, depending on sort of the country where you learned Spanish, I learned Spanish in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. So they have, in a lot of sort of the southern cone, as it's called, they have a very distinctive sound in the way they pronounce a lot of these letters. So I grew up saying yo, yo. Now in Spain and in Central America, you'll find a lot more of like a yo. Yo is I. And then we have tú for you, and for sort of for the people of the Indian subcontinent, the soft T. So this is one reason that we're sort of at an advantage learning Hindi as opposed to many Westerners. I mean, there's a lot of Americans that really can't get the soft T down, which is just second nature. It's first nature, right, for anyone really in the Indian subcontinent. So yo, tú is you, and then we have él and ella. El is him or he, and ella is her. E-double-L-A. El, ella. Then us is nosotros. And I'm just going to jump from that to ellos and ellas. Although, you know what, for now I'll include vosotros. Effectively what we're doing is we're taking the first person, yo, the second person, tú, and the third person, he or she, and then we're finding the plural form of each of those, right? So the plural of I is we. There's many of us, right? So that's nosotros. There's a plural for tú, which is many of you. So when addressing a group of people in comparison to just addressing you, let's say an individual, I would then use vosotros. Now the reason I'm somewhat inclined to skip that for now, for simplicity's sake, is that this is only and exclusively used in Spain. So all of the sort of Hispano-hablante, the Hispanic world at large outside of Spain does not sort of, they don't do with vosotros altogether. They've eliminated it, and they'll just use the ellos, the third person plural form. He and her is ellos and ellas, which would be they in English, but that is also subsumed. There's a third version in addition to ellos and ellas. There's something called ustedes, which is the formalized version of you all. So ellos, ellas, or ustedes. And now that I've mentioned ustedes, I might as well include in the not yo, not tú, not él. So in that third person, él, ella, there's actually a third sort of piece there called usted, which is in Hindi. Again, English doesn't have a variant for this, but in Hindi you can see the distinguishing features of tú versus ap. So in Spanish there's a word called usted, and historians have said that because the Islamic sort of forces also ruled, just like they ruled the Indian subcontinent, they ruled the Iberian Peninsula for like many hundreds of years. This, people hypothesize, actually comes from ustad, that sort of respectful term. So now that we have these down, and here's a quick look. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, and then the final ellos, ellas, which would be they for masculine or mixed group, ellas, they specifically for a group of feminine, and then ustedes is in Hindi what you would refer to as op sub or you all, but a more respectful form of saying that. Now, if I want to say I, again, let's hammer out these conjugations. I speak, you speak, he speaks. Once you get that speak word down, you don't really change it in English. Now, this is where it's very distinct in Spanish. I'm just going to quickly run through this chart. We take the first four letters and we'll just separate them right where the ar comes in, and then we'll be doing the same later with the comer, and then finally with the escribir. Oh, my pen is giving way. There we go. So for now, we'll just take care of I'll show you some of the endings that when we take out AR, it's going to be yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, nosotros hablamos, vosotros habláis, and ellos o ellas hablan. So that, let me just take a look at my time here. Oh, we're already at 10 minutes. I'll just add a couple minutes to that. Yo hablo, tú hablas, él o ella habla, nosotros hablamos, vosotros habláis. habláis, with the accent on the habláis, on the A. And ellos, ellas hablan. And similarly, we can fill out the rest of the chart. So as you can see, the endings, right? So if you ever want to say, I speak, yo hablo, right? You can say, as an example sentence, I'm just going to add a few more words here. Yo hablo con claridad. So now here are the words yo hablo, which you already now know are I speak. Con it comes from the Greek root. It means with. And so the words in Spanish for with and without. Con is with, and sin is without. Con is with, and sin is without. So in this sentence, yo hablo con, and then now a noun. I'm gonna be sending a noun in your direction. Clarity. I think that's a sort of apt and nice sort of noun to know in this demo session. I speak with clarity. Yo hablo con claridad. Now, this is an important and somewhat sort of appropriate segue to mention an important point here. Another very key distinguishing feature between Spanish and English is that all nouns are gendered, right? So just looking around, microphone in Spanish, micrófono. This is a masculine noun, el micrófono, right? And so now I'm also introducing to you the definite article, the. So whenever I want to say the microphone, I can only and ever say el micrófono. I'm looking to my right, I see a guitar. Now the word for that is guitarra. Now if I want to say the guitar, lo and behold, it's a feminine sort of noun. So I cannot, the way I say the microphone, el micrófono, that doesn't work for the guitar. That would be la guitarra. And then this branches off to, if I want to say the microphones, plural, that becomes los micrófonos. And if I want to say the guitars, that then becomes las guitarras. So now we can quickly, if I were to make a quick chart between masculine and feminine and singular and plural, right? We now have a chart. Just for the definite articles, we have el, los, la, and las, right? So now we can see el micrófono, los micrófonos, la guitarra, and las guitarras. Now, incidentally, these nouns that I chose, they have a giveaway in that micrófono ends with an O and guitarra ends with an A. And in Spanish, that's kind of the majority of nouns, especially, I mean, you could say a hefty chunk of them. I'd wager, 60%, 70%. They either end with O or A, so we're in luck, because that's a dead giveaway that is either masculine for micrófono, the ones that end with O, or it's feminine, given like guitarra, if it ends with A. And so if you can recall the name of the object, then just from that, chances are you're going to remember that it's masculine or feminine. But then we have examples like clarity that I had sort of mentioned earlier. Now, the word for clarity is claridad, and that doesn't end in masculine or feminine. And so many times, and this is sort of totally appropriate, many people just forget, a lot of people are not sure. Incidentally, so this is just something you just have to memorize, is claridad is la claridad. Now, there's no direct sort of logical reason as to why is it not el claridad, it's la claridad, and that's just the way it is. So nouns are really set in stone. And to just keep that in mind, right? As you venture off in your world, in your Spanish journeys, it's imperative that you always ensure that when speaking, you do not change the genders of nouns. You always, because verbs are shapeshifters, and adjectives, the pieces or words that describe the nouns, will also have to shift their gender according to the noun. But what really is set in stone are these nouns. There's oftentimes I see students that they'll just say la micrófona, sort of as if that's, you can sort of get away with that in some capacity, and that's just not the case. You can only ever say el micrófono or los micrófonos. So yeah, let me take a look at the time here. We're at 15 minutes. I'm going to close out on that. Espero, I hope, que todos nosotros podemos hablar con claridad. That's really what I wanted to end it on. That we can all speak with clarity. Mi intención es que podríamos seguir nuestros viajes en las lenguas con una intención muy pura para que al final podríamos hablar con claridad. My hope is we can all sort of venture on this journey of education with the intention and the pure intention of speaking with clarity. To me, speech and communication really is the essence of the beauty of any language, right? It's how we sort of get through to each other, right? I hope that this was an apt introductory sort of exposure to the language, and I hope you consider me as a sort of Spanish instructor in your world as you venture into the world of Spanish as an A1 student or more. I go up to C1, so hope to see you on the other side. Cheers.